What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm back with another review of Tyler Perry's Sistas. This is Season 2, Episode 8, and this episode is titled Moving On, so let's go ahead and get started. Actually, this breakdown is going to be about each character instead of going scene by scene, because honestly, this wasn't my favorite episode, and there weren't many interactions amongst the ladies. So let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with Danni, with her drama between Preston and James, as well as a little bit of Zach's character. We start back where we left off last episode with Danni sitting on her bed while Preston has arrived, and James, whose name I just realized, is there without any clothes on. They're in that awkward position that Danni created, because honestly, she should have never hooked up with James, now that I think about this, because I realized that we are still in the same day, because it's how Tyler Perry works. So she had this whole argument with, what's his guy, Preston. She had the argument with Preston, or I wouldn't even call it an argument, just like the disagreement of saying the word gal to her. That happened the night before. Like, that literally happened in the morning, and she met up with her girls at the club. It was like, oh, I'm going to try to get up under another man. So she met up with James, hooked up with him that night. Like, girl, you couldn't let, the situation kind of die down a little bit. You couldn't let yourself and Preston kind of cool off so that y'all can meet in the middle and have a discussion. That blows my mind. So Preston, he ended up deciding to leave. He was over the situation. James was still there trying to stay, because as we know, this is what he does to women. He tries to live off of women, which is something I absolutely do not respect. But he ends up leaving, and as he leaves, who shows up? Zach. Because he still has a key, but whatever. Zach is there so that he could give Danni a ride. Now, I understand that him and Fatima are new, but this is like a whole new Zach right here. He wants to give Fatima a ride to work, just being grateful for her helping him out. It's very strange, because I feel like his character can be very selfish. So Zach and Zach and Danni, they're in the car or whatever, and she keeps asking him, so where'd you get this truck from? Where'd you get this truck from? And he's like, it's mine, I got it, or whatever. She thinks that he's doing something illegal and that he's going to go back to jail. I'm like, damn, that really sucks that no one thinks any higher of you, that they assume that you're doing terrible things and that you're going to be arrested. But now I understand why Fatima has to speak all these things into Zach. So on this car ride, Danni just has to bring up Karen, and Zach don't want to hear about Karen. Now that he has Fatima, he is not thinking about Karen so far. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we shall see. So Fatima actually calls, and Danni was just being Danni, super annoying. She hung up the phone. She was like, don't come for me, girl, and all this stuff. It's like, Fatima is not worried about you. She's not thinking about you. She even said that, girl, it's gonna take more than that, for her to be jealous or whatever. So shout out to Fatima for being a real one and being a real woman and an adult, unlike Danni, who can be very childish. So we later get a scene with Danni and Zach, and they're at the airport, their actual job. And Zach comes over and he brings Danni a sandwich. He is really out here being super duper nice. Fatima put a number on him, okay? So Danni is just giving Zach all this attitude. And he's like, okay, I know what this is about. This is not about me. This is about you and your cowboy or whatever. And, he tells her that she is the one who chose to date a white boy. Well, he says this after she let him know what happened between Preston and herself. And he's like, you're the one who decided to date a white boy, so how can you be mad when he is a white boy who doesn't know things so that you have to teach him? So next thing you know, she's like, why should I have to teach him and all this stuff? And it's like, girl, first of all, if you're going to date someone who is not of your ethnicity, you guys are going to have to learn from each other, because there are things that he has to learn about you, and there's also things that you're going to have to learn about him, because you guys are a mix of cultures. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand where she got to the point of being like, I don't want to have to teach him. He should just know. Like, girl, he was not raised how you were. He probably doesn't even know, like, a lot of black people. Like, let's call a thing here. Like, Preston was raised in, sounds like, the middle of nowhere. His parents are racist. Girl, what are you expecting? So, of course, you already know she didn't want to hear what Zach had to say, even though Zach had valid points. And she's like, well, I'm just going to talk to my girls about this. And he's like, you going to talk to them about what? Because they just going to tell you what you want to hear. Even though I don't think that they're going to tell Danni what she wants to hear, because they don't really like Danni like that. So they might actually tell her the truth. Who knows? So that pretty much wraps up us seeing Danni, because I don't think we saw her again for any more scenes. But we did see Zach and Fatima. They ended up meeting up at the construction site of the house that he's supposed to be building. And again, I don't know how many hours are in a day for Tyler Perry, because last time when he called his job, he's like, oh yeah, my boss said the next time that I have to come in, I have to work a double shift. I'm sorry, but the last time I checked, a double shift is a long day. There is no way that he would have gone to that construction site and Fatima would have been there. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's just not that many hours in the day. Because I feel like he would have been showing up to the construction site at, like, midnight. Like, he wouldn't have been there at, like, 6 o'clock. So, whatever. So, we see these two, they're flirting. And he's like, when I'm going to see you? Am I going to see you tonight? And she's like, you'll see me here tomorrow, because she's trying to keep it real professional, because there's other guys there who are working on the house. So, I'm like, I'm glad that she's smart about this. She doesn't want, her business to be all out there. We're just here for Fatima. So next we're going to talk about Karen, because there wasn't really much happening with her. She's in her salon, and there's this woman who's there to get her hair done, even though the way that lady showed up with her hair all wrapped up, we already knew that her hair was done underneath that little bonnet that she had on. But, the lady is trying to, like, take off her bonnet, and Karen notices her ring, and she's like, ooh, like, the ring was blinding her or whatever. And as she continues to, talk about this ring, she's, like, cursing and, like, using all types of language. And, like, Pam comes up and is like, Karen, like, cool it on that, because this woman is, like, the first lady of a church. So Karen, she tries to, fix her language or whatever. And the woman is like, you know what? It's okay. Just go ahead and be yourself. I'm not about to judge you. I'm like, okay, great. This lady sounds really cool, considering, she is the first lady of a church, and you would think that she would be very judgmental on Karen. So Karen, she ends up getting done with the woman's hair, and the woman's like, oh, I really like it, or whatever, and the woman ends up leaving because, her hair was already done. So Karen starts to talk crap about churches, and is like, I hate that they, take all this money from poor people so that they can, have a good lifestyle, and all this stuff, or whatever. And the woman ends up coming back in because she forgot her phone. And Karen was out here looking stupid. Because, girl, you should have at least waited till that lady pulled off. Like, her car was sitting right there. You could have at least waited till then. But that's not what she did. So, as the woman comes back in, she's just like, oh, here's your phone or whatever, trying to, get the lady out of there. And what's crazy to me is that she ends up calling Andi for something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, gets off the phone, and the woman is like, can I talk to you outside? And it was like as if she was like a kid who got in trouble at school. So she goes outside, and the woman is like, telling her about how her and her husband got their money. They didn't get their money from the church. The only money that her husband even takes from the church is to pay the staff. And her husband was actually a retired baseball player. And he just did really well with his money. He had really great investments. And as for her, she used to work on Wall Street. And like they have a hedge fund. So this was definitely a don't judge a book by its cover. As well as a Karen, this is a come to Jesus moment for you. So even the woman is like, don't let your judgments on what you think is going on in the church be the reason why you don't get to know Jesus. I said, oh, ain't that a word? Because there are plenty of people who feel a certain way about churches and be like, you know what? I don't believe in, big mega churches and how they're taken from the poor and all this stuff. The same thing that Karen feels. And they tend to stray away from God. So I'm like, oh, okay, Tyler, put a word in there. I'm feeling it. So after that, Karen goes back to the salon to talk to Pam about what happened. And Pam is like, maybe this is God trying to send you a sign that, you need to get right with God. And, Karen, of course, doesn't believe that. But I feel like we are going to see a transition with Karen. I feel like Karen is going to, be with this pastor, and she is going to move forward and get a better relationship with God. Like, I don't think that she's going to be like a first lady or anything like that. But I do think that we'll see some changes happening in Karen. And I don't know if the other ladies are ready for those type of changes. Especially Andi, because I'm going to get to that in a second, because I can tell that Andi feels some type of way that Karen is happy. So who else do I have to go ahead and talk to? Because I feel like that is all that happened with Karen. Yes, that is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get to Sabrina. So Sabrina is at the bank, that empty bank that she works at. And she's with Maurice, and she tells him about Calvin and how, so she just decides to go ahead and tell Maurice that Calvin's on crystal meth. And, well, actually, she asked him had he ever seen Calvin do any drugs. But I'm like, girl, don't you think that Maurice would have told you that already? Considering that, like, y'all are pretty close together, and, like, he really ride for you and you ride for him. Like, I don't think that Maurice would have, like, held that type of information from you. But, Sabrina is just very naive and dumb. But anyways, so Maurice, is like, oh, wow, he's on that stuff and all this stuff, trying to make things funny, as they always have his character do. And Sabrina, like, she's trying to, like, convince Maurice to ask him about it. And it's like, girl, you are the one who's dating this man. You are the one who is, like, trying to move forward with some type of something, because it's not really a relationship, because remember, she doesn't want to be exclusive. But this is the guy that you decided to deal with. It's not Maurice's place to ask him, oh, are you on crystal meth? Are you on drugs? Like, how crazy would that be for him to be the person to ask him that? But this also circles back to the fact that Maurice then tells her, oh, because, he's about to move in with me. So, this all kind of makes sense, because he said he doesn't have any money and all this stuff. And I'm like, he distinctively told you not to tell Sabrina. Like, Calvin, he has his problems. He definitely does have his issues. Now, is he doing meth? I don't know. Because I don't know how much we can actually trust James. We don't know that man. All we know is that he liked to use women. He liked to eat booty. And that's about it. Oh, yeah, he a bartender at a gay club and he's straight. That's all we got. So, besides that, I don't think we can trust James. And I also feel like it's just really messed up that, like, Sabrina acts like a child when it comes to this relationship or situationship, whatever this is, with Calvin. Like, girl, you need to speak your mind. Why is it everything that happens with you and Calvin, you sit up here and you have to tell somebody else? Like, you have to go tell Maurice. You have to go tell Danni and the girls. Like, you need to learn how to handle this in-house. Because there is no reason that Maurice was able to throw it in Calvin's face that he wears women's underwear, that he uses a vibrator, and now the crystal meth thing. Like, girl, handle your own business. So she ends up realizing that she is the one who needs to talk to Calvin, finally. And then we later see Sabrina. She's again at the bank with Maurice, and Jacoby ends up walking in, turning in some paperwork, and she's, saying how great, he is, and how, like, his paperwork is, it's to, like, the coins or whatever she said. It was to the penny. And Maurice is sitting over there hating from a distance or whatever, and Jacoby's like, good night, have a good night or whatever. So Maurice is like, bye, good. And I'm like, did he really just gull him? Like, why did you do that? And, like, Jacoby was caught off guard, and he's like, wait, what'd you say? And Maurice had the audacity to repeat it. So he was like, bye, good. And Jacoby, he's like, oh, and I heard about what happened to you, I'm glad that you're okay. And Maurice is like, still being rude and being mean or whatever. So Jacoby, he ends up leaving. And Sabrina's like, why are you like this? And he's like, because he's trying to take my job. And it's like, dude, Jacoby didn't even know that you worked here. He literally got hired for a position because the bank needed somebody. Relax. But whatever. What else can I expect from Maurice? Like, I just want so much more for his character. Yet Tyler Perry is just not giving it to me. So I kind of feel some type of way. But anyways, that pretty much wraps up Sabrina's storyline this week. Nothing much really happened there. Alright, and lastly, you guys already know we have to talk about Andi. Oh, Miss Andi. Miss I Got It Together. Alright, so when we do see Andi, at the top of the episode, she arrives to the law office, and Fatima is basically telling her, like, just take Hayden's lead. And Andy's like, what? She's like, just take Hayden's lead on this meeting or whatever. So Andi goes in there, and she's meeting with the big boss. And actually, this conversation went quite well. It went a lot better than I thought it was going to be going. Because Andi ends up getting Bellamy's job because Bellamy got fired. She negotiated Fatima a raise and a promotion so that, Fatima is not just a receptionist anymore, as well as $1.2 million, which is crazy to me, as well as the release of her apartment and her savings account. So, I mean, that is, like, great. And I love that she actually looked out for Fatima, because as we know, she has not looked out for Fatima at any other point but right now. So I guess Andi does have a little heart. She's not that selfish. So, after the guy ends up leaving out, her and Hayden, they're like, oh, wow, that's a lot of money, and we didn't know if it was going to go this way or whatever. And, like, yes, Andi did some great negotiating, but let's not forget that Hayden did a lot of the groundwork by actually working on, probably getting the information to the head boss about what Bellamy was doing and like actually having evidence against Bellamy. Because Andi mentioned like, oh yeah, like you must have really talked about this. And he's like, yeah, because, you know, it was bad or whatever. So now Andi, you know, she has a new office and she ends up running into Fatima in the hallway. Fatima's like, oh my gosh, what happened? You know, and she like, you know, super happy. And she ends up telling Fatima to get her some coffee or whatever. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but Fatima got a promotion. What's she getting you coffee for, girl? She don't need to be getting you coffee. I need to know what her new position is. So Andi is later in her new office, and she finally tells Fatima that, you know, she's one of her girls and that, you know, she has a raise coming. But again, I need to know about this new position that Fatima has because I'm more so interested in that. But Andi ends up inviting Fatima out, and at first Fatima is like, you know, oh, I don't really know because I'm supposed to be going out with this guy or whatever. And I'm like, when did she decide that she was going on a date with Zach again? Unless there's another guy that I don't know about. Like, I don't understand how we got to her wanting to go out on another date with Zach that same night. But she is the one who gave him the keys and told him that he's going to have to work a lot of hours on this house. I don't understand that. But we're just going to go ahead and move forward. So Fatima ends up, you know, leaving out, and Andi sends, you know, the ladies a text saying that, you know, she has news and she wants to go out. And of course she says that she's paying, so that Danny doesn't have anything to say about that. So I am pretty interested to see what is going to happen with all these ladies meeting up and possibly Fatima being there and, you know, her bringing Zach, because I feel like that might shake a few things up, or it just might be a messy moment with Danny, because I feel like maybe Karen would be an adult about the situation. But we'll see what happens, because from the previews, I don't even know if we're going to make it to them going out in the next episode. So we'll see whenever this happens, we'll see what unfolds. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there is a moment where Karen, she ends up calling Andi because, you know, she wants to find out what happened. Like, does she have a job? All this stuff. Oh, also, I forgot to mention that Andi, she's going to stay working at that law firm. And like that guy said, you want to stay here because I just, if I was her, I probably wouldn't have. But, you know, whatever. To each their own. So after Karen, you know, she calls Andi, and Andi's like, no, I'm going to, like, tell everyone all at the same time or whatever. And Karen is like, oh, well, you know, I'm supposed to go meet up with Aaron. And, like, Andi is, like, rolling her eyes or whatever. And she's like, well, you know, well, can he come too? And she's like, I'll think about it. And it's like, I'm sorry, you just told Fatima that she can bring whoever the hell she want to bring. Oh, but because Karen has somebody, you out here rolling your eyes, and because Karen is happy she wants to bring her man along, you feel some type of way? I don't understand Andi. Like, I really feel like she doesn't want anyone else to be happy except for herself. Because Karen, like, Aaron has not done anything to Andi or to Karen. I mean, besides, he did bring all the drama, you know, into her life, but it wasn't him personally. It was the people around him. So, I'm not even understanding why Andi feels so strongly about this. Like, it doesn't make sense that she's out here rolling her eyes because Karen is happy. Because Karen was like, you know, we're supposed to, like, go to, like, a grocery store. Because remember, that's where they met. And Andi's like, I don't want to hear about that. Like, y'all can do groceries earlier. And it's like, girl, just let your friend be happy. Like, if she think that a grocery date is cute, you let her think that is cute. Ugh, Andi is so annoying sometimes, guys. Alright, so lastly, we do see Andi. She talks to Hayden again. And, you know, he tells her that she can return to her apartment. And he also tells her to be careful because Gary, he got bail, and one of the officers overheard him saying that he was coming to get his money from her because remember, she kept his $250,000, and how she was out at a gay bar. And he's like, so were you out? And she like took offense to it. It was like, I'm fine. Doing the typical Andi thing of being rude and mean to the people who are trying to help her. I have no idea why she does this or what type of complex she has with this, but she definitely has one. So she's like giving him all this attitude, and he's just like, if you need help, just let us try to help you. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm going to go out with my girl so that we can celebrate. And I don't want to think about this. Blase, blase, blah. And it's like, girl, this man is only trying to help your little raggedy tail. Like, he's not a bad guy. He ain't trying to hurt you. Yet you out here, you know that Gary is. You know that Gary is crazy. But whatever, Andi. So, in the end, we see Gary. He pops up on her. And he's like yelling at Andi to like get in the car. Because, first of all, I don't know who taught her how to walk, through a parking garage. But ladies, please always have your keys out, and tucked in between your fingers just in case you might have to gouge somebody's eyes out. Because, people are crazy. So she was like digging in her purse when Gary was yelling at her. I'm like, girl, you should have been on guard at all times. Like, he yelled at her to get in the car, and that's where the episode is. We will see what happens next week. Next week looks a little bit more interesting. Like I said earlier, this was not my favorite episode because honestly, not much happened. But go ahead and let me know what you guys think about this episode. All right, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe, guys. I see that you guys are watching. And let me know what you thought of this episode. All right, guys. That pretty much wraps up the episode. So, bye.